It's the Tribune podcast on this, the 23rd of February, with me, John McAteer, Eamon McFadden and Declan Kerr. And we're just chatting just a few minutes ago that today is the start of our 32nd year of the Tribune. Yeah. Just beginning our 32nd year. We haven't lit any candles or anything like that to celebrate.
Another milestone.
Another milestone.
1991.
It's gone unnoticed to quite a big extent because it's a long time, but a good time.
When you look back now, 32 years, John, it's been an amazing journey.
It's been an amazing journey, but 1991, when we were coming up with this idea, probably mid-1990, when the idea looked to be a runner, you'd never think beyond to the first edition. And you're lucky enough to get the first edition out the door and see people buying in shops to your total amazement. It never occurs to you that will we be here in 5, 10, 15 or 20 years? Them things don't happen. I'm often asked what were you thinking about? You dare to.
It's just what was the plan?
It's just the next
there isn't a plan. It just seemed like a good business idea.
The market research, what company did you employ to see what the...
It was done in-house. But it was quite evident from the amount of stuff that we've been covering over the previous 4 years since we set up the business. And on St. Patrick's Day, it's 35 years ago since I came down to the property across the road from here, to look out the window there, the Shields, to just look at renting out 2 rooms to begin the photography and the videography and end of it, and freelance journalism. But that's where time has gone, and I suppose the main street in Mulford is, insofar as business is concerned, it's much lesser. Numbers of business, too many to mention, have gone and will never come back.
The newspaper industry changed a lot in that time too, John. But the Tribune stayed strong in that time.
We were the first paper in Donegal to do I would imagine that we were taking our sheets up to the old technical school in Letterkenny to get them printed out. We didn't have a printer even. And we were printing in Sligo originally, in the Sligo Champion up at Wine Street, and then after about 18 months or whatever, we went to the Colin McCarroll and the Dairy Journal Group for a number of years. There were good times, big challenges of course. Photography is where the big change has been. It was just film, black and white, in the dark room all weekend, processing bits and pieces of film, maybe 20, 30 pieces.
Yeah, rolls and rolls of film.
Printing them out and then getting them into the journal, into their photographic department to get them processed, and it left you, well, like, I suppose at the time you didn't really think that much about it, but it left you with different deadlines, in that it was very hard to take a picture on the actual morning, although it may well have happened, of the printing. You'd probably have to have them done at the weekend, done in days in advance. Now you could take a picture a couple of hours ago, it would be on the front page today because of the digital technology and the digital revolution in computerization. First of all, processing on the computer, setting, designing and laying out, and typing your stories in, taking your stories in on computer. The big idea back then was that we were going out into small areas, small locations, townlands,
country areas,
private houses, doing stories. But you were going out at weekends taking pictures all over the place because you had to rush back and get them into the darkroom, get the film processed, get it dried, print your pictures, get them dried out and just get them ready for going down to Derry for a man called Michael Quigley who lived up towards Letterkenny, brought them in for us for a couple of years. Good times with Michael.
Then acquiring your own printing press then, John, was a big...
That was a big step forward, step totally into the unknown. We're just down there at the back of Ford's shed.
That'd be a big leap then at that time though, wouldn't it?
It was. It was a giant leap in every respect because, we knew nothing about printing, full stop. Most people we knew nothing about printing. But
you said a lot.
This is most printers, but
I now know everything about printing. But like back in the day, we depended on a few good friends who became good friends of us through Lawrence Donegal's time here. Lawrence Donegal's time here was a watershed for the business because he put us in contact with the West Highland Free Press. People like the late Jim Bruce, who was a print manager in the paper, They were a legendary paper based up on the Isle of Skye in Bradford. They set up in Bradford Old School. Jim came over here numerous occasions, probably half a dozen, would he? Or thereabouts. He was a great friend. He supplied us with equipment, the collating machinery. We got in touch then with somebody that knew all about printing and would have known where to purchase a machine, which we did. And that lasted us for many, many years. But we have moved on, and the clock has moved on, and I suppose we're all getting that but more experience to this stage. But we have never missed an edition, through thick and thin, through good weather and bad, through light outputs and all that kind of stuff.
All through COVID.
And we just had one occasion where we had to print outside of Donegal. It was just something that occurred. Jerry wasn't available in that week. He had an emergency admission to Tirconaill Hospital, and we printed down in Tralee. Again, it's always an option should anything go wrong. So today Jerry's over working away in the printing shed waiting for he probably has the final pages over there. He's probably printing the final edition is now pretty well through. So we're going to take a look at the big stories. Of course, like we have had 3 storms. 2 of them we didn't know much about, but the weekend one of Franklin was quite serious.
Yeah. It was, and it seemed, it caused I suppose it was bigger than maybe what people anticipated, and it created its own problems, and the power outages were massive.
Yeah. It was certainly from just personal experience, out of the 3 of them, given we've been given a red warning at the start, sort of for the storm Eunice, that was the one that seemed to almost catches me out a wee bit, because it was thinking it's going to be, you nearly think you're over the hump, and then there seemed to be the biggest thumper of a storm came in on that Sunday.
The biggest problem about last week is that we had worse storms on the Monday and the Tuesday nights out in exposed areas. Out in Fannet, Eunice passed by without any great notice. But Friday night into Saturday and Saturday into Sunday were probably some of the worst weather I've experienced since about 1998. And the reason I remember Boxing Night 1998, there was a hurricane blowing, and I was sitting at the at the table in the front room, and I heard this unmerciful crack as if something had split or smashed. It was the next day I discovered that the double glazed panel had split from one end to the other. There's a 4mm glass in those windows nowadays, but on Sunday night I have not heard the same kind of gales around the front of the house since that night in 1998. We've had some rough nights being in an exposed area in sight of the Atlantic and living beside a lake. You do experience very, very high winds, because when it hits the water coming down off the hill, it seems to spiral hundreds of feet up into the air and can throw water up over the roof of the house. We had that on Sunday night. We had it
huge seas and all that.
Huge seas.
Yeah.
There was no point in going near the seas to take photographs, because the simple reason was that there was a haze and there was a whiteness of a froth.
Just hovering in the air.
Hovering, like the sea was blowing up into the air. And the amount of rain that bucketed down was unbelievable. I've never seen land as waterlogged at the end of February.
And so many roads.
One of the big things that I've talked to a number of councillors about, our water drains along main roads are in desperate shape. Lots of those roads had a lot of upgrading done on them, and those water drains and the water courses were all left to absorb whatever waterfall was coming down and coming out of land. Nowadays, when hedges are cut and vegetation grows, it's not been cleared away. So that vegetation takes root all across the summer, and coming to this time of the year, hedge cutting in the season is now ending. All of that vegetation has backed down and is blocking the drains, and there's no clearance of it, and there hasn't been for years and years. And I often wonder why the council can't invest in manpower to go out and do that work and ensure, the numbers of manual workers now on the roads is very, very minimal. You rarely see them. They're soon going to be as scarce as the concrete.
I think they do a good job there, Dick.
They're badly needed, because the amount of water coming onto roadways all week has been unbelievable, and it's all in the main due to blocked drains. The system is there to absorb the water, but it's been blocked by the vegetation and the growth of it.
Yep.
But we're going to go and look at one or two things in the Tirconaill Tribune this afternoon. We're talking about the green light for the Donegal Medical Centre after 5 years?
Yeah, it's a long awaited. It's a ongoing saga, that, because many times we've covered that many times in the paper on different aspects of it and all of that. But that has been
became
mooted.
famous in the Tribune because people would worry some weeks away back 4 and 5 years ago why you haven't done this week. You know, it was like Drummond Bridge way back 25 years ago. We started doing a daily count of the number of weeks and the number of days and the number of hours that Drummond Bridge was blocked. I remember James Boyle was the engineer in the council at the time. He had charge of bridges, and finally he took it upon himself to do a job on Drummond Bridge, and it has never looked back ever since. But the Donegal Health Centre has been a very long burning topic, and it made a lot of headlines before the last election. Remember the pictures of Joe McHugh and all that?
It was kind of like a false start almost to it. If you
I was talking to Joe McHugh about that today now. He still remembers it quite well, you know, but he's probably more concerned about the next election. But he did a lot of work on it. Michael McClafferty has been a constant promoter of the idea behind the scenes. And I was talking to Michael earlier on. He's delighted with the progress. That is the exact progress. It's taken a different direction, hasn't it?
It's taken a bit of a U-turn compared to what we had been reporting in the past, in the sense that we know that the site that had been identified and owned by T&D Stewart Construction Limited. They were the ones who were kind of leading the charge in all of this. Now it seems to have pivoted again from that, because we understand now that the people who are going to actually construct it are a group called Glencar Healthcare, and they will be the ones who will ultimately lease it back to the HSE for 25 years. So
yeah,
there's been a bit of a change of...
Darren Stewart and the team, they have sold that on now to Glencar Health Centre, so all is well. It's going to end well, and it could easily see the project go to construction in the next couple of months.
As simple as that.
It's a good news day for the community down there, for Dr. Stewart and the family, who've had to work in very cramped conditions for years and years and continue to deliver a service, even as expectations about healthcare continue to grow and to improve, and numbers continue to grow. Dr. Stewart was there, you know, in the forefront of delivering the best possible service. So it's a good day for all of them.
Good facility to have it in now. Yeah,
it's a good facility to have it in. Declan, we're going to look at another notable character called Alan Wiley. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, Alan turned 80 last week, and he's a very, very well known member of the farming community out there at Drummond. Was one of the early pioneers in contract and agri-contracting, going back to the late 60s, and very successful, and that's been carried on now by his two sons. But I suppose the other thing about Alan in the last decade was that he's a cancer survivor, and he's seen at first hand people's needs in terms of going to Galway and for treatment and better services for transport now. So he started up about 10 years ago the tractor run, the charity tractor run out there at Donegal, around Letterkenny, and used to go down as far as Bridge End. So it's going for nearly a decade, and has raised in and around €200,000.
Wow.
So
fabulous amount of money.
And
fabulous amount of
some
money.
contribution, isn't it?
Huge contribution, and also carried on his own farming interests as well in cattle and Limousin and Aberdeen Angus and all that sort of stuff, and finishing young cattle as well as doing the contracting. So a very full life, and congratulations on his 80th birthday.
He was way ahead of his time. Yeah. There's another man, just looking at his picture on the front page here. Is George McDermott of Balladerick.
That's right.
Pictured with his two daughters on the occasion of his 87th birthday. Yeah. And it fell on the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022, and we wish him
all the
and his kinfolk health and happiness in the future. We're also going to make a mention of Robo McGinley.
Yeah, young Rocco McGinley. He's a 14-year-old from Buncrana, has strong family connections in this area down in Glenalla, where his mother was Yvonne Higgerty, and in October he developed a very aggressive brain tumour. Had a lot of treatment here up in Crumlin, but the family were looking at other options then, and they found a place, a clinic in Texas. So he was out there for a month. He was out there for a month and has had treatment. That has gone well. He came back home last Saturday. Will continue treatment for the next while, and but so far so good. The family are very, very happy with what the treatment that he got out in Texas, and hopefully now, fingers crossed, that will continue.
We'll look across a few other headlines inside the paper. Council seeks external review of allegations. The council has sought an external review into allegations for corruption made in relation to the sale of 5 houses in Mulcrana to the local authority, and Chief Executive John McLaughlin told Monday's meeting in the Oral Leisure Centre that the council's own investigation into claims of corruption were not substantiated by any evidence provided. We're going to hear more of that when the external review comes out, and we can't comment beyond that. I also see what Kieran Brogan has raised an update for the CT scanner at Letterkenny University Hospital. This was at the Regional Health Forum earlier this week, and the Sales Chief Operations Officer is saying that they are waiting approval for recruitment of staff radiographers for the second CT scanner. But in the past 6 weeks, 5 new radiographers have commenced work, and 2 more are due to begin in May. So that is pretty good news for the.
We welcome that.
We welcome that very much indeed. We're also going to look here at back to the front of the paper, Micah, a legacy of false dawns. And the upshot of all that is that the Micah Action Group and Mr. Michael Doherty, the PRO, was talking to me the other night. They met with the SCI Group, the Society of Chartered Surveyors of Ireland, last Thursday, and that report is actually copyright to that group. Then it will be presented to the Minister on Monday. It is anticipated. At that point, we're not clear, does he publish the whole report? Does he seek further clarification, or where? We just don't know. But what we're seeing here, and this is Joe McHugh, as delays continue to hamper the county's Micah redress scheme, Deputy Joe McHugh has told the Dáil debate, this was on last Thursday night, that since he first got involved in it in 2014, and that's 8 years ago, Paddy Coffey, I think he was a Kerry man, he was the housing spokesman in the Department of the Environment. Since 2014, there have been too many false dawns and time frames and no real progress for the homeowners. Joe McHugh is pushing to get the heads of a bill published. He says there's absolutely no reason at all why that can't be brought into the Dáil and debated on its content before it's probably before the first official paper would be published on it. But the heads of the bill can go ahead. There's no reason. Joe believes there's absolutely no reason why that can't happen, but he is blaming officialdom within the departments for stymieing the whole progress. And that probably is borne out by other Donegal TDs. So at the moment there is no real progress to report there, and apart from the concerns of families living in those damaged homes all over the weekend through those storms, a nightmare time for all of them. And when Michael Doherty says that while the physical damage to houses is quite evident, he says it is a major issue that is not seen. The mental torture and the no timeline and the
pure
fears
anguish,
and the worries. Pure anguish. But after that, we're going to go ahead. We're going to visit Tirconaill this week, where they get a brand new state-of-the-art sewage treatment plant.
Good picture on the front page
The
there,
people
John.
down there won't believe that from probably next year on, their treatment plant will be one of the most modern in Ireland, and yet there is disbelief, and this is the headline, there is disbelief as Irish Water retains an 80-year-old sewer pipe, a crockery sewer pipe, and we just highlighting the fact that there was a red letter day there on the 11th of November. That's according to the Irish Water's Public Relations Department, who seem to work overtime on this stuff. But construction began on that plant about last middle of October or thereabouts, and there's extensive works there, as the picture shows. But there's disbelief in the town. Liam Blaney has highlighted this here. You know, we're saying that the historic artefact that is the 10-inch pipe is continue to serve the length of the whole village street, It's 80 years old. It's probably shows signs of wear and tear and leakage. And Liam Blaney is highlighting the fact that the need to replace the existing pipe is obvious, but Irish Water is simply not listening. And he says, it's a crazy idea to construct a brand new system while still using a crockery flow pipe that is sure to give trouble given its age and the ongoing disturbance of machinery. That's how things are done in Irish Water. Their concept is that if it's not broken, don't attempt to fix it. They've dug up the length of the Tirconaill Main Street.
Why they had the road open?
Huge trench. It's a huge trench altogether. And the old pipe is in there exposed as they're working, the vibration and the digging. And this is to carry a pressure pipe that will take the sewage from that treatment plant, which ends down at the bridge. It'll be pumped back up across the town and over past St Mary's Terrace to a new state-of-the-art system. Where it goes to from there, I'm not too sure. Some of the residents believe it'll probably end up in the new 3 towns sewage plant up at Rye Bridge, or up at Rye School, or at the Brown House School. Mm-hmm. But anyway, there's disbelief that any organisation, I mean, if the council was doing that, the first thing they would probably remove would be the sewer pipe. But this is not happening, and we haven't got an awful lot of response from Irish Water on that. But the fact that I can't find it is another story. But it's somewhere inside the paper. But they're just highlighting the fact that they're trying to maximise the amount of money that they have to increase the number of people who can join the sewage system and to prevent untreated water going into waterways and going into rivers and streams. And it's a point that I don't see as being a viable one, because if you're putting in a new system, you're not going to buy a new car and put an old exhaust back onto it, or old tyres or anything like that. But that's where we're at in Tirconaill. So let's see how that goes. We've run out of time on this Wednesday evening. We'll talk to you next week.